Expect more right now. You're watching Wave 3 News.
This legislation is ugly, it's mean-spirited, and it's intended for harm.
Opponents call it a license to discriminate. Supporters say it protects religious freedoms under attack by the government. Today, Indiana Governor Mike Pence signs the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Thanks for joining us tonight at 6. I'm Shannon Kogan.
And I'm Scott Reynolds. That new law getting national attention, even that of the NCAA. The law prohibits any law that substantially burdens a person or business's religious beliefs. For example, a store could turn away gay and lesbian customers in the name of religious freedom. Indianapolis will host the Final Four in less than 2 weeks, and in response to the bill, the NCAA releasing a statement that the organization is committed to an inclusive environment where all individuals enjoy equal access to events. The statement goes on to say the organization is going to examine the implications of this bill and how it might affect future events, implying the association might think otherwise about bringing a tournament back to Indy. A lot of controversy surrounding this law, but the Hoosier State is far from the only one with this kind of legislation.
And Wave 3 News reporter Katie Bauer has been looking into that today. And Katie, what about here in Kentucky?
There is a religious freedom law here in the Bluegrass, and this is in place despite Governor Beshear's veto in 2013.
Indiana and Kentucky are two of dozens of states that either have or are working towards these so-called religious freedom initiatives.
Chris Hartman, the director of the Fairness Campaign, says he was disappointed in the Indiana Assembly and that Governor Pence signed the religious freedom with the issue of gay marriage.
The opposition knows that it's lost ground, and so they're attempting these last-ditch, dying gasp efforts to restrict rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people however they can.
Supporters say it is not about discrimination.
The only place really these kinds of laws have been used is in cases like the one in Kentucky several years ago with the Amish, who wanted to use something other than a bright orange triangle because they have religious restrictions against certain things.
Martin Cothran with the Family Foundation says people with strict religious beliefs sometimes need protection.
The people who are making these pretty extreme claims about what the bill will do and talking about intolerance and bigotry are in many cases the ones practicing it.
Cothran cites the 2012 case of a Lexington t-shirt design owner who was accused of discrimination because he didn't want to print a gay message on a shirt.
When we start forcing people to agree with us, I think that's when we've crossed the line, and I think that's one of the things that we hope anyway that bills like this will help.
At the end of the day, a key provision of this measure is to deny service to gay and transgender folks based upon a so-called religious principle.
And the so-called Indiana General Assembly overwhelmingly endorsed this bill despite more than 10,000 letters of protest. In the newsroom, Katie Bauer, Wave 3 News.
Thanks, Katie. And just how many states have this so-called heightened protection? Well, 31 of the 50, 19 of them, including Indiana, passed laws giving more protection. Those are the states you see here in red. The protection in the other 12 states in yellow came through court rulings. There are no such laws for those you see here in blue.
Well, he admitted to killing his niece back in 1999, and now Stanley Dishon will spend 20 years behind bars. Dishon showed no emotion this morning as he was sentenced for the death of Jessica Dishon. He's charged with rape, incest, and sodomy. He must register as a sex offender and then serve an additional 5 years of probation after his sentence. Jessica Dishon was a senior at Bullitt Central when she went missing. Her body found 17 days later in the woods, about 7 miles from her home. Stanley accepted a plea deal, agreeing to manslaughter in the strangulation of Jessica.
He became very jealous. She wanted to tell a boyfriend that she was currently seeing about the ongoing sexual abuse and rape of her uncle. At that time, he decided to go ahead and kill her, we believe.
Think that you give somebody a place to stay and then they turn around and this is what happens. You know, it's just hard to deal with.
Dishon was living with Jessica Dishon's family at the time of her murder. He has sexually assaulted 5 children, all of them family members.
Young lives lost as a train collides with their car. New tonight at 6, a city councilman promising now to make that train crossing safer.
Wave 3 News reporter Natalia Martinez recently told us that gates were already in the works at that crossing. She joins us here in the studio. And Natalia, what else might be in store there?
Well, there's a handful of changes aside from the gates that the state had already approved. This after 3 teenagers were killed when their car collided with a train March 14th. About an hour ago, I was at the crossing where the crash happened with council member Steve Maugre and a couple of people who live around there. The councilman talked about 3 things specifically. A huge tree right next to the tracks is coming down. There were concerns about the tree since that crossing is on a curve. They are also getting rid of another railroad crossing sign made. That's about the size of a stop sign. The councilman says that it had been stolen at some point. They're also going to paint the word stop on the pavement in front of the crossing. He said when road work was done there, those markings had been painted over. He said city crews are trying to get to the work as soon as they can.
It was sad that this is the kind of thing that couldn't be moved along faster, but I certainly understand that it doesn't happen that way. And
after the crash, we did find out the gates were in store for that crossing near Buchel Bank and Bardstown Roads. The state's transportation cabinet told me that they were waiting on Norfolk Southern to give them a plan and a cost for the gates, and that hasn't happened yet. Now, those gates were paid for with federal money. The cost is about $250,000 and up. Councilman Maugre told me that he's been told by the state that the gates will be installed by this summer. Shannon Scott.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Kentucky tonight fighting to not only stay perfect this season, but of course alive in the NCAA tournament.
Oh yeah, this is exciting. Both the Cats and Cards looking for the sweet taste of victory this week in the Sweet 16, and our Kendrick Haskins is live in Syracuse with U of L.
But our team coverage starts with Wave 3 Sports Director Ken Taylor, still in Cleveland. He's up there with the Cats tipping off against West Virginia tonight. I know one of their players predicting victory, but the Cats 13-point favorites, Kent.
Yeah, Scott, we'll hear from some of the West Virginia players coming up in a few minutes in sports. They are confident about this. When the gates opened about 20 minutes ago here at Quicken Loans Arena, the Q, home to the NBA's Cleveland Cavaliers, but the fans filing in tonight might get to see the #1 pick in the NBA draft come June as we take a look at Karl Anthony Towns. The UK freshman has been their go-to guy when games have gotten close late. That's been the case all season, but he's playing his best basketball in this NCAA tournament, including a career-high 21 points in the tournament opening win over Hampton.
I guess I'm just getting better position on the block, and I'm able to be closer to the basket, makes the shots more high percentage, and just making them.
What do you see that Karl is better at now than he was even earlier in the season, getting better at?
Just staying low, having low position on the block, the lower man wins, and, he's so gifted offensively, once he's low and he gets it in the post, it's pretty much impossible to stop him.
Everybody's saying, it's got to be the toughest job of getting these kids to play their ego. They talk about their egos. These kids are just great kids. And I'm coaching them hard. I mean, I'm probably harder on Karl than anybody on this team because I see how good he could be.
I asked Karl a couple weeks ago if he's surprised when teams don't double team him in the post. His answer was very, very. If you don't, he's going to score. He's been great in the tournament and could be great again tonight against West Virginia. Now, that game tonight, U of L won't open and play in the Sweet 16 until tomorrow night in Syracuse, but they had an open practice today in the Carrier Dome, and that's where we find our Kendrick Haskins live. Kendrick?
Thanks, Kent. Like you said, we're live outside the Carrier Dome on Friday night. The Cards will play in the Sweet 16 against a familiar face in NC State. The Wolfpack knocked the Cards off in the KFC Yum Center last month. Now, since that loss on Valentine's Day, the Cards are a completely different team and are starting to gel at the right time.
We know them and they know us, and one of us may make a big change in this game that the other team's not ready for, and maybe surprise someone.
We're doing all the right things and all the little things we need to do to win games, So, like I said, everybody in this locker room has one mindset, and that's trying to get back to Indianapolis.
Now, coming up a little later in sports, Kat Barber for NC State gave U of L a little bit of advice, and U of L says they're not listening to it. We'll explain that a little later in sports. But for now, outside the Carrier Dome here in Syracuse, Kendrick Haskins, Wave 3 News. Scott Shannon.
All right, thanks so much, Kendrick. And surprisingly to some, the Cards are favored by 3, even though they lost by 9 to North Carolina State here at the KFC Yum Center. Those odds makers know what's going on, though.
What a great 2 days for fans here in Kentucky.
Going to be fun to watch. Coming up in sports, our Brian Winter. He's in Evansville still. The Bellarmine Knights prepping for their Division II Final Four game tonight.
Also, dozens of people in Scott County now diagnosed with HIV. The push to keep an alarming outbreak from spreading further.
Well, kind of a crummy Friday, or kind of, it's not even Friday, is it? Seems like a Friday. It seems more like a Monday, doesn't it? It's just Thursday. It's my Friday, though. Hey, outside around the area, we have the rain falling, the temperatures are cooling down, and the 20s are in that 7-day forecast. I'm going to show it to you when we come back.
Yeah, nice to know you have the day off tomorrow. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6. Remember, tweet us your game day photos, maybe your Friday off photos, with the hashtags Wave3Cards and Wave3Cats. Contain, treat, prevent. There are just several steps local, state, and even federal health officials are now planning after an HIV outbreak in Indiana in Scott County.
And Wave 3 News reporter Cedra Mayfield breaks down why this epidemic has sparked a public health emergency.
Here at the Scott County Lifelong Learning Center, everyone from city and county to state and federal health officials have spent the day brainstorming how to stop this local HIV outbreak in its tracks. Part of their plan involves the creation of an incident command center focused on diagnosis and treatment. Health officials also want to tackle the Scott County HIV outbreak by stopping it where it starts, shared IV drug use. With 79 cases of HIV recorded in the county this year alone, up 16 times from the annual average of just 5 cases, Indiana Governor Mike Pence has announced a short-term needle exchange program. Listen closely. This is how the program is expected to work.
The needle exchange program that the state is allowing us to do temporarily is going to be where if they bring in dirty needles, we can dispose of them and they get clean needles to use so they're not spreading HIV.
You've got to have some good programs and education along with that exchange so that these people are getting exposure to these programs that can help them, not just another needle.
The short-term needle exchange program is expected to be just that, short-term, to the tune of just 30 days. In Scott County, Cedra Mayfield, Wave 3 News.
Thank you, Cedra. A decade after an old movie theater is sold, we're finally learning what's moving in, and oh boy, you're going to like this.
I think so. Also, temperatures, they're crashing. And listen to this. We're talking about a possible freeze this weekend. Kevin will have the details next.
Well, the neighbors had it right. Another Costco is coming, and it's to Bardstown Road.
People are excited about this. The old Showcase Cinemas on Bardstown Road shut its doors more than 10 years ago and was recently sold. And now that land, we've learned, will be developed into the popular big box store Costco. And we have the renderings, too, to show you. The Planning Commission received of the new store along with the plan. It calls for a 153,000 square foot retail warehouse. The cinema closed in 2004. It wasn't torn down, though, until 2010 and was sold in September. And then in November, some neighbors heard, oh, it's going to be a Costco. It will become the second Costco in the Louisville area. People will be excited about that. Yeah. Stuck up on the toilet paper, right?
And 28 rolls of paper towel that'll last you
forever.
For the next 6 months. Yeah.
Well, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned promised us a gloomy day today after that gorgeous Wednesday.
Yeah, and he says it only gets worse, though. Kevin, you're saying temps actually below. We're going to see our breath again, aren't we?
Yeah, back into the 20s, low 20s in some areas, many areas, in fact, by early Saturday and Sunday morning. So the cold air still rushing in, shows no signs of letting up. How about the gray skies we had around the area today? We picked up a little rain out of this as well. Our SkyTrack network of cameras showing the cloudy skies everywhere. Temperature, that'll be a welcome feel as temperatures push back into the 60s for Sunday and Monday, even warmer by Tuesday and Wednesday. I am so ready for those like upper 60s, low to mid 70s just to stick around for a little bit.
I agree. I think most people do. Yeah. All right, Kev, thanks.
Well, Bellarmine, U of L, and Kentucky all still alive here in late March.
And up next, our sports crew tracking the 3 teams looking for a national championship.
Back here live just outside of Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, where tonight around 9:45 Kentucky and West Virginia will hook up. Daxter Miles Jr., number 4 for the Mountaineers. He is the West Virginia player who said that Kentucky would be 36-1 after the game tonight. The Cats obviously haven't been beaten yet. Why does he say that? Well, the Mountaineers do force an NCAA high 20 turnovers a game, and his teammates join him in that bravado. They're a very confident bunch.
It's just the same as they making history or trying to make history. We are trying to make history as well. We never had a national champ before in West Virginia, so we are looking forward to that. So,
and I'm sure you all hear some of the outside stuff. I mean, a lot of people saying, you know, they've already got this tournament won. Is there a sense in this locker room that they're going to have to go through you guys?
I mean, that's insane if you said they got the tournament won. You know, it's March Madness. You know, you got Iowa State getting beat by UAB. You know, you got a bunch of teams getting upset. You know, so that's crazy to say that they won a tournament already. You know, they still got games to play just like we do. You know, they still got to get ready like we do. So we're just looking forward to going out there, and I would never put them past us.
Every time we huddle up, we say national champs. You know, we do that for a reason. So we just look at it as another game. It's another team we need to get through what we're trying to do for our season.
West Virginia head coach Bob Huggins, 8-2 against John Calipari, but just 1-4 all time against Kentucky. Now, I'll have a complete report on this one for you on Wave 3 News Sunrise. Our Kendrick Haskins is in Syracuse, New York, with the Cards, who had an open practice today. Kendrick?
Thank you, Kent. You know, the full court press has been a staple of the Rick Pitino defense since he picked up the whistle over 30-something years ago. But sophomore guard for NC State, Cat Barber, who had success against the Cards back in February, says he wouldn't recommend that. Wolfpack sophomore Cat Barber torched the Cards for 21 points in their 11-point victory at the KFC Yum Center and had a little advice for U of L on how to defend him.
Just talking to Cat Barber, and he said he didn't think he could be pressed, full court pressed. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, he's fast, you know. We just got to contain him. That's the main thing.
We're not going to change just because he said something like that, but, I mean, that's it. Our press is designed to slow you down in the end of the game, not the beginning, so we'll see how it is.
Don't expect the Cards to heed his advice.
Well, Duke just pressed them and just won by 20 points. So that throws that theory out the window.
I mean, everybody can be cocky. I mean, that doesn't matter. Everybody can talk outside the court. We're going to see what he's doing between the lines.
Cat ruffled a few feathers for the Cards. Of course, that game is tomorrow. Kent, your game is tonight, and we'll send it back to Cleveland. Kent.
All right, thanks, Kendrick. The U of L men and women and UK trying to make it to the Final Four. Bellarmine's already there. They'll play Florida Southern tonight in Evansville. That's where we find our Brian Winner.
The Bellarmine Knights roll into the Final Four tonight after blowing out Minnesota State Moorhead last night, 92-75 in the Elite Eight.
I'm just really proud of the way we share the basketball. But, you know, you don't beat a team like this because every time you score, they get the ball without playing defense as well together as you do offense.
Besides from the Knights' great execution on the court, off the court might have been better. The entire crowd in the Ford Center was scarlet and silver as the Bellarmine faithful made the trip 2 hours west.
We're hearing about 11 buses coming up here. You know, it's easy to get excited for a game like that, and we're extremely proud to be a part of that community and have all that support. It's awesome.
I think those shirts with the word family on there pretty much explains everything about this basketball program at our university.
Tonight, everyone in the Bellarmine family needs to do their part as the Knights take on Florida Southern, the #1 team in the nation that barely knocked off Bellarmine earlier this year in overtime.
I remember after we lost, we said we'll see him again. And, you know, here we are, Final Four, playing them again.
The tip time for tonight's semifinal game is scheduled for 9:30 for a chance to play in the national championship. From the Ford Center here in Evansville, Brian Winter, Wave 3 Sports.
Thank you, Brian. A lot of people think that game tonight is for the national championship, but we'll have you covered. He'll have a complete report on Wave 3 Sunrise from Evansville. And again, the Cats and West Virginia tonight around 9:45, guys. Can I please go back inside? It is freezing out here.
Oh, you poor guy at the Cats game.
Seems like he's having trouble talking.
Yeah.
Nightly News is next.
See you at 7.
Now, with Wave3.com and the Wave 3 News mobile app, you always have breaking news and weather right where you are. Sponsored by Margaret's Moving and Storage, the people who make the right moves.